Hi, good morning. Thanks for that intro, Sophie. That was great. So, welcome to Art Talk number 197. Paul Gauguin is one of the most significant French artists to be initially schooled in Impressionism, but who broke away from its fascination with the everyday world to pioneer a new style of painting broadly referred to as symbolism. As the Impressionist movement was culminating in the late 1880s, Gauguin experimented with new color theories and semi decorative approaches to painting. He famously worked one summer in an intensely colorful style alongside Vincent van Gogh in the south of France, before turning his back entirely on Western society. And today we're going to be focusing on that period of his career and life. He soon began developing his distinct style, characterized by a bolder use of color and less traditional subject matter, as seen here in Tahitian landscape. His work in Brittany and Martinique showcased his inclination towards depicting native life and landscapes. By the 1890s, Gauguin's art took a significant turn during his time in Tahiti, then a French colony, where he sought refuge from Western society. Femme de Tahiti is typical of his paintings during the early part of his stay in the Pacific. Paintings often depicting Tahitian women busy with simple daily tasks. The faces are rendered as a mask or a profile, rather indeterminate but full of melancholy. This landscape is likely in the area of Matea, a small village in which Gauguin settled during the fall of 1891. The canvas highlights the rich hues of the lush Tahitian terrain, reflecting the compositional simplicity sought by the artist during his visit to the island. This piece is actually titled, and excuse my pronunciation, Hair Mai, which means come here in Tahitian. Gauguin, who spoke little of the native language at the time, often combined disparate Tahitian phrases with his images in an effort to evoke the foreign and the mystical. This piece here is just full of mesmerizing and rich colors. And if we think about the progression of European art movements, Gauguin is part of this transition period between the Impressionists, who painted these outdoor landscapes, and the Fauvists, who used these bold, unrealistic colors in their pieces. And Road in Tahiti is kind of a nice combination of the two. We can see the smaller brushstrokes indicative of Impressionist influences, but the deep colors of indigo and greens are really what draw the viewer into this piece. Gauguin's work was unlike other artists at the time, not only because of his style, but also because of his subject matter. In a way, he was groundbreaking because he was showing the world, or really France, the exoticism of Tahitian culture and appealing to a European market that was fascinated with the faraway colony. As Gauguin spent more time in Tahiti, we can really start to see him pull away from the Impressionist style and start to experiment with these fluid shapes and really pungent colors. And I personally really like Landscape with Peacocks on the left. There's something very whimsical and almost intoxicating about the piece, with the washes of yellows and reds that almost look like they're melting off of the canvas. This landscape shows the artist grappling with representing an unfamiliar environment. And rather than documenting botanical species scientifically, Gauguin focused on the artistic potential of their variegated colors, textures, and forms. The human figure off in the distance and the dog roaming through the fallen branches kind of activate the landscape and establish a sense of scale. Here we can see a photo on the right of the thatched house that he was living in. And Gauguin spent a significant portion of his life in Tahiti, eventually dying there. And the more time he spent there, the more his art changed and morphed. He was known as part of the symbolism movement, which began as a literary concept, but was soon identified with the artwork of a younger generation of painters who were similarly rejecting the conventions of naturalism. Symbolist painters believed that art should reflect an emotion or idea rather than represent the natural world in the objective or quasi-scientific manner embodied by realism and impressionism. And we can see that emotion and playfulness of his Tahitian landscape on the left. When Will You Marry is one of Gauguin's more famous works of his time in Tahiti, and one of the key aspects to it is the clothing of the two women, one in traditional Tahitian dress, and the woman in the back dressed with more European influence. Gauguin traveled to Tahiti to create, quote, pure primitive art, unlike the artists in France painting what they thought the culture was like. He really wanted to be immersed in it. But when he initially arrived, he was stunned to see that the colony had already been quite influenced by Western culture in many ways. And sadly, many of the indigenous Tahitian people had been killed by disease brought from European colonizers. So, in a way, this painting highlights the duality that he discovered. And finally, at the foot of the mountain, captures both the majesty of the natural environment and the quotidian existence of its inhabitants, with Gauguin's signature exaggerated colors and shapes. Gauguin's naturalistic forms and, quote, primitive subject matter would embolden an entire younger generation of painters to move decisively away from late Impressionism and pursue more abstract or poetically inclined subjects. His endorsement of bold color palettes would have a direct effect on the Fauvists like Matisse and the lines of Cubism like Picasso. His artworks rarely come about for sale, but when they do, they go for minimum in the tens of millions of dollars. And that just shows the legacy that he has left on the art world. Thank you.